season here at Not So Wimpy Teacher. Today we are talking all things close reading. So grab your reading passages, grab your microscopes, and let's get started. Close reading is such an important skill for your readers and writers to master. However, it's one that I think is often overlooked because there is no explicit standard for this. I don't know about you, but I live and die by my state standards. They're highlighted, they're laminated, they are printed on cardstock, and there is no standard for close reading. However, we know that this is a skill our students have to master in order to be successful on those standardized assessments that we're taking at the end of the school year. Today we're talking close read, and I want to share some tips and tricks with you to help your students really master the close read. But first things first, what is close reading? Well, lucky for you, it's exactly what it sounds like. Close reading is the ability to dig in and analyze a text after multiple reads. That's right, multiple reads. Every 9-year-old across the country is going, no! We have to teach our students to read it more than once. It is so important that they really dig into a text. When you're introducing the concept of a close read to your students, that's what you want to communicate to them. This is a skill that's going to help you be successful. It's so neat when our students reach the end of a school year because they can really start to have those conversations about what's going to help them, what is going to be important for them, and those test-taking skills. Close read is one of them. So the first thing to really communicate to your readers is the value of this skill. This is why we're practicing a close read. This is why you're going to need it at the end of the year, but this is why you're going to need it for the rest of forever. Close reading is a good life skill, if you ask me. So you presented the idea of a close read to your students. They know the reason, they know the end goal. Now it's time to get them working in a text. When you're presenting a close read to your students, you're going to want to do a lot of modeling. Really think out loud for them. Hopefully by this point you've built such a strong foundation for them that they're going to be able to talk about the author's purpose. They're going to talk about the characters or the character traits. If you're reading nonfiction, they'll be able to really dig into those text features and the ways the author communicates information. It's important still that you model for them while you're reading and analyzing so they can follow your thought process. When we're teaching students to close read, I always like to present a first read and a second read. The first read is the opportunity for students really just to become familiar with the text. I always have my students number my paragraphs, underline my title, and really after that just read the text. Read the text making mental notes. Now that you've completed your first read of the text, it's time to bring in the second read, and the second read is where we get to break out those writing tools. Maybe you're brave enough to give your students highlighters, or maybe we're just going to start them with pencils on this first introductory activity with a close read. However, again, that model is so important. Show your students as you are reading for a second time how you underline important pieces of information. Maybe you're circling unknown words. Maybe you're writing notes to yourself out in the margin. Really dig back into that text and cover it up. I tell my kids, I don't want a nice, clean, close read at the end of this process. I want to see where you did your thinking on the page to help you grow and understand what you read today. You've done your first read, you've done your second read, you've marked up your text. So what comes next? That's the fun part. It could go a lot of different ways for you in your classroom. Something I love to do during this time of year is introduce a schedule when it comes to a close read. My students know on day 1, we are going to read the text and we're going to mark up the text. On day 2, we're going to reread it again just in case we forgot anything. That's right, folks. That's 3 reads. And then we're going to work to answer some comprehension questions about the passage. Talk about test-taking practice. Great skills to review. On day 3, we'll dig back into that passage again and focus really specifically on one key reading standard. So maybe for nonfiction, we're answering questions about author's purpose. Maybe for fiction, we're talking about the character traits we see. That just depends on the standards you decide your students need the most practice and review with in the context of that close read passage. Day 4 is my favorite because it's fantastic practice for a text-dependent analysis. At the time you reach day 4, you've spent 3 days working in this passage. You could read it in your sleep. Your students are writing it on their arms with Sharpies. We know this passage inside and out, and now we get to write about it. My schedule that we use, we get on day 4, and then we write to answer a question using the text to support with our evidence. Working with a schedule in your classroom can be so helpful, especially with something you want your students to become really comfortable with. I will use this schedule through the last few months of the school year, and it gets really quick and easy for my students. The first week, I use it simply as my reading lesson. From there, it gets shorter and shorter. Eventually, we'll be to the point where we can do each day's activity in less than 15 minutes. If you need more time during your day, there's nothing that says you can't squeeze this in other places. This is a valuable skill. It deserves our time, and your students deserve the time to practice close reading. And I know what you're saying, but what passages will I use? And I have an answer. You'll use these. These are the seasonal close reading passages, and they are great. We love a theme. We love a season. If I can read about Easter bunnies at Easter time, sign me up. That's what these passages are designed to do. They're engaging, they aren't too long, and they work as great options for having your students practice those close reading skills. Digging into this resource a little further, each month includes 5 reading passages, and you don't just get the passage. You get the comprehension questions, you get the anchor charts, you get the standard-based practice skill, and you get the writing prompts. So that sounds like a week's worth of close reading activities to me. I love using these with students because they're interesting topics, they're engaging topics, and they match whatever season we're working in. Grab them up in the cards and down in the description box and get your students working hard on those close reading skills. Thank you guys for joining me today, and I hope you are leaving with some ideas for getting that close reading instruction working hard in your classroom. Don't forget to grab our seasonal reading passages that come with everything you need to introduce close reading and continue that instruction in your classroom. Also, if you want some more tips, tricks, and strategies for test prep this year, go ahead, check out our playlist. We have a whole collection of great ideas for you. And as always, hope you have a not so wimpy day.